VL. It's been a while. I've been gone for a couple weeks, but I'm very happy to be back. As you can see, I've got my father next to me, Dr. Nicholas Vogelzang. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
And today we're going to discuss a few things, but first, some updates. Where was I? I was in Las Vegas at the Asbestos Conference for Mesothelioma Lawyers. It's something we've done for many, many years, and it's put on by Shep Hoffman out in Baltimore. And it's really great. We get to share ideas as attorneys and what we've been dealing with, what issues have been out there legally, and how to better serve our clients. So that was a really good learning experience, and got to bring out the associates and have a great time, of course, in Las Vegas. But now we're back and we're doing some great work. This weekend, this is the last day of May 31st, we've got ASCO coming up, which is the American Society for Clinical Oncology. Did I say that right?
You did. It's my
right.
40th year, so.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
And that kicks off, I think it kicked off yesterday, but that's the reason for Dr. Vogelzang's presence here. And we are lucky enough to have him here at the office at Vogelzang Law, and we'll be asking him a few questions. Before we get there, just a couple of other events I wanted to talk about and plug. That's the Roofers Cup, which is Friday at Ruffled Feathers. Morello will be out there with the Roofers Union golfing away. And then Saturday, June 8th, we're doing the Union for Life golf outing, which is in the heart of Michigan, and that is raising money for breast cancer research through the University of Michigan. So really proud to be part of that, and I hope we have great weather. Hopefully the rain stays away for a couple days, and they can raise some good money. So now to our topic at hand, and that is mesothelioma, because Dr. Vogelzang is one of the premier doctors in the field. And what I wanted to talk about today is immunotherapy and how that's changed. If you could tell us a little bit about your background in treating mesothelioma and how it's evolved. And I'll ask you in parts, but why don't you tell us how you first got involved and what treatments you used, say, 20 years ago?
Well, when I started, there were no treatments for mesothelioma. There were a few drugs. And then because here in Chicago there were so many mesothelioma patients, I started working with a company called Eli Lilly. They developed a drug called Alimta, and we put that together, showing that Alimta with platinum was better than platinum alone. And that regimen, the platinum Alimta regimen, has remained the standard of care now for over 25 years.
So let me just stop you. That was just in the late 90s, it sounds like?
I think it was, it may have been as early as 92.
And how did that chemotherapy regimen affect the patients?
It was very difficult. Platinum is hard on people. Platinum gives chemotherapy its bad name, essentially. That's how hard it is on people.
And what kind of symptoms does taking
they
platinum
get terrible fatigue, they get nausea, they get anemia, they can get kidney problems, they get hearing loss, they can get nerve damage.
Wow.
It's a rough road. We used to give 6. Now most of us cut the dosing down. It's only 4 doses.
And how long was that chemotherapy regimen the standard, and is it still the standard today?
Well, we've tried in many ways to improve upon it. In fact, just recently we published a big paper showing that adding a pill to it didn't help much, didn't help at all. The French study showed that we added a drug called Avastin to it, and that did make some improvements. But really the improvements have been in immunotherapy.
Now, let me just, before we get there, when you say improvements, do you mean improvements in treatment or improvements in lessening the harsh symptoms of the platinum as part of the chemotherapy?
Well, there's no way around the platinum. We've gotten better about nausea control. We've gotten better about kidney damage. We've gotten better, but we have not overcome those major side effects. And most patients can only take 4 to 6 doses of the chemotherapy. There's a maintenance, it's called Alimta, which is given every 3 weeks. That's easier on people, but it still doesn't knock the cancer out permanently.
So now the treatments are starting to evolve, and that brings in immunotherapy.
Right, so there's been a whole bunch of immunotherapy programs, and now the National Cancer Center Network has put immunotherapy on its guidelines. So after chemotherapy fails, patients should receive immunotherapy. And that does have benefit for a big number of patients.
So as a lawyer, I see a lot of our patients at their homes when they're outside of that hospital setting. And I've heard a lot of good things about immunotherapy. People seem to be less punched out or they're just feeling a lot better than what I'm used to seeing. And are you getting the same results as you would with traditional chemotherapy when you go to immunotherapy, or is it hard to tell what you're going to get?
Well, we've done a whole variety of cancers have been treated with immunotherapy. Whenever you compare chemotherapy to immunotherapy, the side effects drop by 50% or more.
Wow, that's
so
great.
It's dramatic. Some people can go through immunotherapy with no side effects at all, although that's rare. They usually get some itching and some a little bit of diarrhea, but in general, immunotherapy is excellent side effect-wise. The problem is it doesn't work for everybody. Nonetheless, the guidelines now suggest and recommend that if the chemotherapy cannot be given or if it is ineffective, that immunotherapy should be used for the mesothelioma patients.
So some of my patients, or not my patients, my clients, your patients, some of them are too weak or they're in a state that just isn't a good idea to give them that blow of chemotherapy. Is that where you can use immunotherapy where you might not be able to use chemotherapy?
Well, the guidelines are not rules, but in general, we still recommend chemotherapy first, although we often reduce the platinum and get rid of that because that's the hard one, and give them Alimta and sometimes with a drug called carboplatin. But we are more and more willing to move to immunotherapy earlier. I so far have not given immunotherapy first. I still prefer to give chemotherapy, but I would imagine there's coming a time when patients will get immunotherapy first.
Let's go ahead 10 years. Let's go to the year 2029. What do you see for mesothelioma patients? I know from what I've learned in the field and talking to my clients that will eventually and unfortunately still have people that have mesothelioma from asbestos exposure 10 years from now. What kind of treatment do you foresee? Do you think they'll still be taking chemotherapy in 10 years? And I know, of course, it's hard to, you don't have a crystal ball, but if you did, what would you say?
I can tell you this, that more and more we are looking at the fingerprint of mesothelioma. And there are certain fingerprints that will tell us whether they should get chemotherapy or whether they should get immunotherapy. Today I'm going to be at a meeting this afternoon talking about adenosine. There's a small molecule, it's a pill that will make the immunotherapy more effective. Interestingly, mesothelioma has the highest levels of adenosine in any cancer. Why is that? Well, that's probably because adenosine makes cancer resist immunotherapy. If we can block adenosine, we can maybe make immunotherapy more effective in mesothelioma. So my job at the meeting this afternoon is to convince this small company to work on mesothelioma using the adenosine molecule to make immunotherapy more effective.
Well, that sounds great. That sounds really promising. And, it's great to give our patients some hope and remind them that there are great doctors like yourself and others that are meeting and talking about how to make their lives better through treatment and give them more options, because one of the really challenging things that can happen in a lawsuit is when our clients are extremely sick from chemotherapy or from the cancer itself. So it's great to hear that all this work is being done on research and treatment. So
thank you.
Thanks for that, and thanks for stopping in. It's always great to have you.
You're welcome.
Hopefully we'll get some good dinners this weekend.
You bet.
And
Looking forward to
enjoy
it.
your time in Chicago.
Thanks, Dick.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for listening.